Parshas Shlach. This week's Parsha contains the tragic episode of the failed mission of the representatives of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel to scout out the land and to report back to Moshe and the rest of the children of Israel about the land. As we know, the scouts who could have brought back on the same evidence a positive report ended up bringing a negative report because of their predisposition. As a matter of fact, the Gemara says when they returned, Vayelchu, Vayavo'u el Moshe. First it says, this is Perek Yud Gimel, Pasuk Chav Hei, that's 13:25, when it describes how the scouts came back. It says, Vayoshuvu mitur ha'aretz miketz arba'im yom. So they came back from touring the land after 40 days. Vayelchu, Vayavo'u el Moshe. And they left and they came to Moshe. So the question is, and Rashi mentions this is based on a Gemara in Sota, that they went, it says, Ma Vayelchu. Why does it say Vayelchu and they left? It should just say they came back, Vayoshuvu, Vayavo'u el Moshe, and they came to Moshe. But it says Vayelchu, Vayavo'u. And Rashi, quoting the Gemara, says, Lahakish halichoson libiyoson, to connect their departure with their return. Ma biyoson be'etza ra'a, af halichoson be'etza ra'a. Just like their return was with a negative report, so their leaving was with a negative report. In other words, they had their minds made up before they even left. Now, why that is a separate story. I remember hearing from Rav Goldich, my Hashoeva, when I was learning Kerb Yavna, that the Meraglim were fearful of the transition from a very overtly spiritual existence in the desert to an existence in which people had to work for a living and they had to till the land, etc. And they just were afraid of the transition. They feared that it would not be successful and it would end up very badly. But whatever their motivations were, the fact is that they had their mind up, according to this reading, they had their mind up before they left, and so they filtered everything they saw through the lens of failure. And it's that in itself is a lesson that some people just once you have your mind made up, it's I think it goes, don't confuse me with the facts. My mind's already made up. So the Moshe suspected, evidently early on, that this was not going to end well, and he wanted to inoculate Yehoshua, who was one of the representatives. He represented the tribe of Ephraim, and at the time his name was Hoshea bin Nun. And the Torah says, this is now also Perek Yud Gimel, Pasuk Nezayin, that's 13:16. The last half of the verse says, Vayikra Moshe Hoshea bin Nun Yehoshua. That Moshe called Hoshea Yehoshua. So why did he call him Yehoshua? So Rashi explains, this is also based on the Gemara in Sota, that he called him Yehoshua, his palel alav, he prayed about him, Ka Yoshiacha me'atzas meraglim. Ka, the word Yud Hey, we pronounce it Ka, it's actually Yah. Hashem will protect you from the plot or the advice or the conclusion or the recommendation of the rest of the Meraglim. So Moshe suspected that there was going to be trouble, and he wanted to inoculate Yehoshua. You shouldn't fall prey to their arguments and to their majority report, if you will. He wanted to give him chizuk, to give him encouragement to stay strong. Now we know that there are two people who stayed strong. Yehoshua was indeed one of them, but the other was Calev ben Yefuna. So the question is raised. A number of Meforshim asked this question. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu specifically pray for Yehoshua, but he did not pray for Calev? So Rav Schwab, in asking this question, he says that we know from last week's Parsha that Moshe Rabbeinu was Anad Mikol Ha'adam Asher Al Pnei Adama. That Moshe Rabbeinu was an extremely humble human. As a matter of fact, he was the humblest of all human beings who ever lived. We also know that Yehoshua, Nar Yehoshua Lo Yomish Mitoch Ha'ol, that Yehoshua was a devoted servant and student of Moshe Rabbeinu. And as is the predilection of students, they tend to admire and then adopt many of the character traits of their teachers. Now, they can't adopt their mindset. It's impossible to for one human being to fully absorb what goes on inside the mind of another. So he doesn't necessarily have the balance that Moshe Rabbeinu would have. And we see this frequently, that students take on the more overt aspects, personality aspects of the teacher, and don't necessarily have the same shikol hadas. They don't necessarily have the same facility for weighing various factors that might mitigate that predisposition. But in any event, according to Rav Schwab, Moshe Rabbeinu was quite concerned that Yehoshua would be exceedingly humble, excessively humble, and he would be deferential to the point that he would be willing to stifle his own opinion, or even bend his own opinion to the opinion of the others, perhaps out of excessive humility. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu saw that trait. Because he saw that trait in Yehoshua, he attempted to successfully to inoculate him against excessive humility. And we see once again that one character trait, however laudable it may be, does not a human being, or does not a balanced human being make. We all require balance. Now Yaakov Kaminetsky suggests that Calev had a different source of balance. Yaakov Kaminetsky in Emes Yaakov asks the same question: what about Calev? Why did Moshe only bless, if you will, or pray for Yehoshua by changing his name, by adding a yud to Hoshea, which alludes to the divine, because the yud is the beginning of the name of the divine, of God? Why did he choose to inoculate only Yehoshua and not Calev? So Rabbi Yaakov says that Calev had a different sense of balance. His balance came from his wife. Calev was married to Miriam, who was a tzaddikus. She was a righteous woman. And as the Torah says in the very beginning of the Chumash, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu notes that it is not good for man to be alone. Lo tov heyosa adam levado. So the Torah says, E'eselo ezer kenegdo. I will make for him a helpmate corresponding to him. And the Torah uses kenegdo, which is could be read in a simple way, is read corresponding to him, mulo ba'avuro, for him, bishvilo, for him, etc. But it says kenegdo. Kenegdo implies not only correspondence, but it also implies some notion of opposition. And Chazal say there, zacha ezer, lo zacha kenegdo. If he's meritorious, then the wife acts as a support. And if he's not meritorious, then the wife acts in an oppositional manner. And I believe this means that it doesn't just mean if he's meritorious, meaning if he's a good guy, that he gets a good wife. And if he is a bad guy, he gets a bad wife. I don't think it means that. It's going to the essence of the relationship between husband and wife. And that is that part of the mission of a wife is to keep her husband on track. If he's doing the right thing, support him, encourage him, show him the way. If he's doing the wrong thing, oppose him, do not support him, and show him the way. And according to Rabbi Yaakov, Miriam served that purpose with Calev. So Calev did not require quite the same measure of encouragement, of protection, of inoculation that Yehoshua did. He had an external source of balance. Yehoshua required an internal sense of balance and fortitude. Have a good Shabbos.